So let's start with the launch. The launch was problematic in that we got things a little bit wrong. And when I say a little bit, I don't mean a little bit. We got things wrong.
Welcome to this episode of Inside the Sim Paddock. I'm Brian Belansky, and I am really excited about today's show. This is one I've been wanting to do for a while. You know, there's a lot of sim racing games out there, simulators out there. I hesitate to call them games because some of them are just games. Others are really good tools for simulating auto racing and can be taken really seriously, really competitive, both on the sim as well as using it as a training tool for real life racing. I'm kind of in the middle of both of that. So I come at this as a real life racer, and I try to find things that help me be better on the racetrack, as well as have a good time doing it. And I'm trying to do a podcast here, or I am doing a podcast here with all of that in mind. I know most of the world out there is racing on iRacing. There are some other titles out there, though, that are exciting, and I did a podcast a little while ago about WRC Rally from EA Sports, and sadly that's not being supported anymore, but there's a huge community of people who love the rally stuff, and so I said to myself, we need to do at least one show, or maybe multiple shows, looking at all of the other titles that are out there. So a new title, somewhat new, that's out there and is being developed right now is Project Motor Racing. I didn't know much about it other than it was there, and so I reached out to the folks who do Project Motor Racing, and I said, hey, could we get some folks on the show to talk about it? And they were happy enough to be helpful enough to be able to give someone an expert. We've got two people today to talk to about Project Motor Racing. They also provided me with a Steam key so I could drive the simulator a little bit before we had the conversation, and I got a chance to do that over the weekend and learn some stuff about it, and we're going to talk about that as well. So joining me today on the show from Project Motor Racing is Alex Martini and Ivo, is it Franic?
Yep, Franic.
Great. Good guess. I should usually ask that before we start the show. But they're coming to us from various parts of Europe today. I've never had anybody on the show from Croatia, so that's a first for the Racing Network. I appreciate that. And welcome to the show. How are you guys doing today?
Great, thanks.
Good.
Thank you very much.
So we ask every guest the same question first, and I'll give you each an opportunity to answer it. The first question is, how did you get started or fall in love with this crazy sport like the rest of us have? Who wants to go first?
Eva, go on.
So for me, it started back in, I think it was the early 90s. A friend's dad bought a computer, and he had Indy 500 by Papyrus on there, and that was after all the other kind of games on PCs. When I saw racing cars and quite well modeled, like Indy 500 was a pretty impressive game at the time. That's when it all started for me, and then since then it's been the Grand GP titles by Jeff Crammond, IndyCar Racing 1 and 2, and then NASCAR. Grand Prix Legends was probably the biggest revolution at the time, and yeah, just been moving through time. It's actually been quite a lot of years now when I think about it, when I started. But yeah, I've been sim racing since the 90s basically.
Very nice. Do you do any real life racing?
No, unfortunately not. I've had some karting events and some track days, but no, nothing serious, unfortunately. It's an expensive sport.
It is. All right, Alex, you're up.
Yeah, kind of the same story. I actually, even before Eva, I go back to the 1980s with Revs, which was a little game on the Commodore 64, which was my start, and then exactly the same as Eva. Grand Prix and Grand Prix Legends, and I got to know quite a few people in Grand Prix Legends because it was a small community back then. So I ended up on a little beta test group, which ended up doing a thing called VROC, which was one of the first online multiplayer I don't even know what the hell they were called. But we used to just hang out, and yeah, that's from there, and just carried on from there, I guess.
I'm old enough, Alex, to actually remember the Commodore 64.
There you go.
I go all the way back to the Atari 2600. That's how old I am.
Nice.
So,
Well, the cool thing about the Commodore 64 was when you played revs, you had to hold the spacebar down to turn the car with the, because you had to use your keyboard.
right.
But to get a faster steering, you kept the spacebar down. So what I used to do, I used to take a piece of paper and actually wedge it into the spacebar, so the spacebar stopped. So I was actually cheating already. Back in 1986, whatever it was.
That's good stuff. Good stuff. So, and do you do any real life racing, Alex? I always ask that question because a lot of our folks do.
Track days, karting, that kind of thing. I'm way too old to.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we got to the start of Project Motor Racing, because there's been a lot of development since it was launched. But what's the history that got to the launch date of Project Motor Racing?
So it's actually quite a weird story. I can't even remember now. Probably about 4 years ago, Ian Bell, who did the Project Cars, GTR, GTR2, Eva's been working with Ian for many years, and after the end of Project Cars, I landed up moving off with Ian and a couple of other guys, and we sort of came up with a concept of, should we just make another game? And Ian had moved on at that time from EA and from Codemasters, and we were like, well, let's bug it around a bit and see what we can do. Got a game design document together, got some funding, did this, that, the other. And then we were ready to make a game. At which point, Eva can tell you what happened next. We were making something for Electronic Arts, and what happened?
Yeah, so I've been working with Ian for like 15, almost 20 years, just at the end of GTR 2, and then all the other titles that SMS did at the time. So Need for Speed Shift, the Project Car series. Codemasters purchased Slightly Mad Studios, then EA purchased Codemasters. It was a big happy family for a year until they basically shut down all the studios and the games that they didn't have a need for. So the only games that remained were F1 and WRC, and now unfortunately WRC is also gone.
Right.
So we were working on Project Cars 4, and that was shut down. So yeah, luckily Ian was basically retired. He didn't have to do this anymore, but he decided to get back into it. He couldn't help himself, and yeah, offered us a job and got the same team, most of the same people that were part of SMS back together and started S4.
Yeah.
So essentially, we had the game, had kind of the funding, but what we didn't actually have was the studio. And as Providence happened, we suddenly landed up. The studio was suddenly ready to go, and so yeah, we started making the game.
So for those of us who don't know any of the behind the scenes of how this stuff works, when you say didn't have a studio, what does that mean to us?
So we had a game design, we had everything, except we just didn't have the people to actually make the game.
Got it.
So either we went out and started recruiting staff everywhere, which obviously would have been the next plan, or the whole studio that has been with Ian since the days when he was modding back in 2000 or 2001 suddenly became available because there was no Project Cars 4. So it was just like the perfect moment. It was like, well, there you go.
Oh.
So we just came back together again, and it was kind of like one of those movies, when the Cowboys come back together again. It was kind of weird, actually.
So is it? I mean, you're in Alex, you remember again where you're at this morning?
I'm in Switzerland.
You're in Switzerland.
Zurich.
So the studio isn't a physical location. It's a group of people who work together on a particular project, right?
So the interesting thing about our studio is that we have been remote since Ian actually started it as a modder back in, I think, 1998.
Wow.
When he was working from his apartment in London, and we have been remote ever since. I mean, we do have a central location that nobody ever goes to because everybody just doesn't bother, but it is in London somewhere.
Sure.
And obviously we have our publishers and partners here in Zurich, in Giants Software, who do the famous Farm Simulator. They are our partners and, of course, our publishers. So there is that. They're not really our office. I mean, we just work remotely. We have way before remote was even a thing. We've been working remotely. Yeah.
Yep. So when I was playing the game or driving the sim, I always default to playing the game, but I really like to call driving the sim because most people don't treat it as a game. They treat it as a sim. When I closed out yesterday, there was a button for credits. And I'd never seen that on a simulator before. So I hit the button, and my eyes glazed over at all of the people that it takes to do that. Are those all full-time staff, or are those a combination of full-timers and part-timers? How does that work?
It's all full-time staff.
Wow.
Eva can actually explain. We don't. I mean, Eva can explain our process, but we don't really farm out a lot of our art, etc., and the asset creation. But aside from that, the physics engine has been made from scratch as well, right? So I don't think a lot of people realize the crazy amount of investment that it takes to actually make a simulation.
No.
It's not a game, and so when you get to that level of detail, you need a lot of stuff. You need a lot of people in physics and handling, and not even but Eva can explain the art side of it as well, which is even more intense.
Yeah, so we are remote. We're mostly remotely based. They used to, in SMS days, there was a central London office, and people that came in that lived in London or close by, they'd prefer to work in the office. But most of us started or joined as passionate modders at a time. So we were spread out all over the world, across Europe, across America. And we just, like, I was finishing university. Ian offered me a job basically while I was doing free mods for, at the time, games like I started with the GP2, then GP3 and 4, and actually I worked for the EA Formula One Championship 99, 2002. Wow. And me and Ralph, we made all the vehicles for that game. That was our first sort of foot in the door to actually make some kind of pocket money, pocket change from our, at the time, just like a hobby. So most people that started were remote, and we just learned to work that way, and that was always easiest for us. And in the COVID times, that also came as a big help for us because it wasn't such a shock to be stuck at home and work. That's how we all sort of got used to it. The studio is already not quite as big as it used to be, but it's quite a big studio. There's, I think, 70 or 80 people. So it's, the art side is one thing. There's like 10 people that create the tracks, the environments. There's about 6, 7 that create the vehicles. I'm the vehicle lead, so I'm basically coordinating the vehicle creation process. We obviously have different departments, physics being a big one. The physics engine is basically it's a mathematical model built from scratch. So whereas some previous games, like iRacing, also have their own custom engine that they've had for basically since they've started back with Papyrus. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some Indy 500 code still inside iRacing somewhere, but they've just been iterating their own engine. In the industry, it was very popular to use the old ISI or R-Factor engine. So you could basically license that engine from them, and then you modify it. And a lot of games are based on the ISI engine. We had to basically start from scratch and make everything ourselves. So the amount of people needed. So the physics is one thing, but it's all the rest of it. It's the gameplay team, it's the audio team, it's the multiplayer. There's a lot of parts, and when you put them all together, it adds up to a lot of people.
Alex, what's your role in the studio?
Well, eventually I'll do the PR and the marketing, but like most studios, it's a revolving door kind of thing. I mean, I'm involved in all. We all are. It's just.
I want to talk bigger picture today, but maybe we can get in another podcast in a month or 2 or 3 down the road and talk about what it really takes to build a track and what it really takes to build a car to make it like a real car. Because I think we could do a whole show on each of those. And I think there's some real fascinating, if you can do it without giving away too many secrets that,
Well, there are no secrets because we are moddable. So you can literally, if you wanted to know, you could literally go into our game today and look at every single file of every single car, every single track. You can just make one yourself.
Cool.
We are completely moddable. Yeah, we got nothing behind doors. We're not hiding anything.
That's one of our big selling points. What we've always wanted. Like, we understand that. So iRacing is the exception here. They've got a very different business model.
Right.
It's a closed platform, and it's a subscription service basically.
Right.
So you purchase content, the tracks and cars, but you're paying for a monthly subscription.
Right.
And when you have enough people, like they do, that's a really good business model, and it's great. It took them a long time to get there. At the start, I know it was tough, and it was always, users complained that why is iRacing so expensive when another game is you buy it once and pay once and you have it for free, or you have it forever. How we create tracks and cars is pretty much the industry standard. There's no secrets.
Right.
But the thing is, with the current PMR, it's an open moddable platform, and that means our content, that's like the tracks and cars that are in the game now, players can, let's say, explore, modify, change liveries, change textures, and we encourage and we want to allow people to make their own content, which is basically what Assetto Corsa has become. Assetto Corsa has become the mod platform in the last sort of 10 years. We are, from the get-go, very concentrated on opening our game to be moddable.
Right.
And by that fact, you can basically see see our finished product. Basically, you can see the textures, see the vehicle models, and everything. Whereas other games, in our previous games, that was behind the not a paywall, but it's like company secrets. You don't want everyone to get your stuff, but it's different when you try to be open.
So I think there's two types of sim racers out there. Being really general, there's folks like me who I don't have the time to do modding. I don't really know anything about how to do it. I don't even know that I have the desire to learn, which is why I probably really enjoy doing the iRacing stuff. Because you don't have to worry about it. You buy the car, you buy the track, done. And then you have to work on getting good at it, which is a whole nother discussion for another day. And then I think there's a whole bunch of people out there who love to tinker and create and do the mods. And, I always thought those were the Assetto Corsa people. And now we've got Project Motor Racing is kind of following that same model. Do you find that you get people who want to do the modding, who just want to do that stuff and don't really want to go to the other platforms, or is everyone kind of crossing back and forth from platform to platform?
I think you're right in terms of, when you say there's two types of sim racers, I think there's actually many sim racers, but I think at the end of the day, they all end up in the same place. With Project Motor Racing, the modding is something that modders can get into, but at the end of the day, we do have a base game with I think 82 cars and 20 something tracks, 32 layouts or whatever it is. So the game is there. So and the base game is the base game, right? So while modding would be great for us and people do the modding, we are also, by the way, putting my marketing hats on, because it is actually kind of a new thing. We are, as far as I'm aware, the only simulation to ever have modding on console as well as PC. So literally, you can make that mod. That mod goes to a place called a ModHub, which you can access in the game, whether you be on Xbox, PlayStation, or PC. You just click the button and you go into the ModHub, and you can just download anything you want straight into your game, and it's done. It's literally 20 seconds. The good thing about that is that it enables us also to create some cool things. For example, I'm sure maybe you'll ask us just now about our time model, but we evolved our time model for the GT4s. What we did then was we got Michi Hoyo, who's a pretty famous driver, and Jesper Pedersen, who have won the LMU, the 24-hour race, whatever. We got them to actually make setups for us for every car. We put those in the ModHub, so our users can get the new GT3. They go to the ModHub in game, they press the button, they get all the setups that were made by all these esports guys. It's all in the game, they just load it and they go racing. So the mod is not just modding cars or whatever, it's the whole thing. You can get the liveries if you want, you can get your setup. It's all sorts of things that you can actually do with the ModHub, which is really cool for us because we can put stuff in which doesn't necessarily have to be in the game, it's just in the ModHub, and players actually have a choice to download them if they want to.
Yeah, that's a good point. The cross-platform part is also quite unique. So the console market, we all know, is quite large. So games like Assetto Corsa, Competizione, and actually also the first Assetto Corsa, they also came out on consoles, but many years after the original PC launch. and it was never quite at the same level as the PC. You couldn't mod, you couldn't add stuff to the console version, especially for Assetto Corsa. That was where most of the fun was. After the first few years, it's like the expansions, people that like to drive around the city, or people that create their own leagues and things, and that modding, not just modding to create content, but just how you modify the game for your wishes and your desires. The consoles are completely excluded from that in other games. But with us, first, the physics are the same. So what you drive on the PlayStation 5 is the same physics as you drive on the PC.
Sure.
And those same mods that are created and shared, they are downloadable and installable on the consoles. And that's actually a very big deal. That's also thanks to the Giants engine and their farming simulator, which works like that. Their back end for this ModHub to allow mods to be interchangeable and work across platforms. That's a really big deal. And yeah, so far there's no other sim game that offers that.
Yeah, interesting. So obviously there's some big players in this space. You know, we've talked about iRacing. LMU just came out recently and put their thing out there. Assetto Corsa in 2 forums has been around for as long as I've been doing it, and I've been not doing it. I'm a baby in the sim racing world. I didn't start until 2020. My best friend was doing this back in the early 20,000s and was trying to get me to do it, and I said, G-Dub, I said, I got a wife and I got a family. If I do this, I'm gonna get hooked, and then I will get divorced. I can't do it right now. Little baby at home. And then my kid grew up, and I said I can do it now. And in 2020 I went all in, and my God, I exactly what I thought was going to happen, which made me not do it, is exactly what has happened. I love it. I am hooked on it, and all of that. But with all of these other names, why do we need another platform? Why do we need Project Motor Racing?
A good question, but put it this way: when you really look at our space, our industry, and I'm talking about simulation now, I'm not talking about arcade games or whatever, actual simulation. There are only 5 studios in the world that actually do simulation. Only 5 of us. So that's not a big market in terms of how many people are going to make simulation. The reason for that is because sims last a long time, right? You've been playing iRacing sims wherever. iRacing has been around for almost 20 years now. People are still playing it. So engines get developed, engines continue, and the games kind of progress, right? But the engines that actually run these games are starting to get pretty old. If you think about the engines that are running most of the simulations, iRacing, Eva was exactly right. iRacing probably has code in there that goes back to, I don't know, 1997, probably earlier. ISI, same thing. So bringing a new engine, just to give you an example, is actually important for the industry because it gives modders, for example, a new way to actually create, right? And so that's one of the good things about having somebody new in that space, is that it does create new opportunities and obviously new ways to actually create games, right? I mean, iRacing, the basis of iRacing, for example, goes back to 2006, 2007.
Right.
And a lot of these sims that are on the market are coming from pretty old engines, which are obviously being updated as they go along. So we think we do have a certain advantage because of our engine is so new, that we're actually taking advantage of newer technologies, which I think Eva can probably explain better than me, but yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in just a second, because I definitely want to talk about that. I think one of the things that probably wasn't your intended purpose in doing this, but has come out of it, is with the new titles, it's forced iRacing to work harder.
Of course.
They just put out two updates ago, a huge update, and it's the biggest change in iRacing in years. So I think it's great, honestly, for all of the people involved, you guys as well as them, that now they've been, and I don't know if that was something they would have done anyway, or whether it was accelerated because of all the stuff that's going on. And I know there's some people that hated it because they just want the things to be the same. I personally love the new update, and the stuff that they're doing. So I think that the fact that competition is awesome because it forces all of you to be on your game better.
I agree.
And that's good for all of us as the consumer, because if anything stays stagnant, it becomes old and goes away, and then we go to the new thing. So I think that's really great. So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's a very good point. No, it's a really good point. That I mean, it was actually kind of amusing because obviously, where we were coming from, Project Cars and Project Cars 2 were pretty big hits. I mean, we were Project Cars 2, for example, and even Project Cars, we were the kings of the hill at that stage, right? So for us to come to now, it's been 15 years or whatever, but we've come to it from a different angle. But it's always good to see how, as we were evolving, we were suddenly seeing, so another game is coming out, and suddenly, the launch window just coincidentally came into our launch window after a week that we announced our launch window. Well, there's a surprise. I guess they waited. But that's good for us, right? Because I will say to you, it's a very small, and even though we are in competition with each other, if you actually had to go behind the scenes of any of these studios, there is a lot of chatter between us, and we're always helping each other out when things are, we get people coming into us just consulting and just saying, have you tried this, by the way?
Right.
It's very common because we are such a small industry.
Yeah.
It's a niche market, yeah.
It's a very niche market. I think sometimes when you see the community and it kind of becomes this very tribal thing online, it's kind of amusing for us as developers because behind the scenes, we're all, when we go to Gamescom, we go to, sim racing, we're all sitting in the same room having lunch together and having a good laugh, right?
Yeah.
Because we know each other. We've known each other for years and years. And that's the funny thing about it. So it's a small industry, but yes, we do push each other. And there is a rivalry, but it's not a rivalry that's actually comes from a bad place. It's a good rivalry.
Yeah.
So yes, you are quite right on that.
And it's very similar in the real world of racing. We all go to the same races together. We all eat lunch at the same, cafe at the racetrack. There's multiple series usually on a race weekend, and they're all hanging out in the same suites and talking about it. And when the green flag falls, we want to be first. But when the checkered flag falls, unless you've run someone over or done something stupid, you get out and you slap your buddy on the back, you drink yourself a beverage, you might sit around the campfire at night on Saturday nights, and you come back and do it again on Sunday. So it's that same level of camaraderie, it sounds like, as well, which I think is great.
It's also, to be mercenary about it, you started in 2020, which means that you were one of those COVID people who we absolutely hate.
Well, and I started actually before COVID. I started working on putting stuff together in late 2019.
Okay.
But
that's my point is that COVID brought so many people into the genre, and that's good for us. And so for us, if we see that one title has some enormous, like I said to Corsa, when the mods came out, and suddenly they sold, 20 million games or whatever it was, we look at that, we think, fantastic, right? Look at all these new players that are in the market.
Right.
Now it's for us to go to them and say, guys, you know what? We also have a good game. Why don't you come test? So for us, it's great. The better other developers do, the better it is for absolutely everybody in the industry. So we're always like,
yeah. Love it.
That's just the nature of the industry.
So let's do this. I'm gonna just take a half a second here and thank my partner here. And you said it's a niche market and it's not a lot, but when I was doing research to put my media deck together, it's a $1 billion a year business. So while it's a niche market, it's not a small market. There's a lot of people spending a lot of money on this business. So, which is something I didn't realize until I started doing the Inside the Sim Paddock and wanted to get partners. So that number blew me away. Let me take a second and thank my partner here, and then we'll come back and we'll get into the launch. We'll get into my experience driving it. I've got some questions, and we'll get all that going. So stay with me for 10 seconds here. I just big thank you to Full Send Sims. Great people and SCCA racers first and foremost, and then they got into the simulator game, and they're just the best customer service out there. I love working with those folks. They've got their weekly series, and they're just launching a brand new sports car challenge series that launches today. Actually, is their first race on a sports car challenge. So check them out. Full Send Sims online. Their website is in the show notes, And then once you get there, you can get into the Discord and become part of the actual racing community as well. They also create some of the best turnkey simulators. White glove service. They'll come to your house, they'll set it up, and they've also got some other exciting stuff coming along the line as far as if you don't want them to come to your house and set it up. If you're a tinkerer like me and you like to build things with your hands, they're putting together some products for you as well, and I can't wait to get my hands on that, and we're going to do some content and some videos and show people what it takes to put those together, and they're just really good folks. Military-owned, veteran-owned, and it's just really good folks. So check out FullSendSims.com. All their links in the show notes. Also, if you would like to partner with Inside the Sim Paddock, you know how to find me. It's simracerbrianb@gmail.com. I'm also on a Discord. It's the Graybeard Sim Racer Discord channel. You can hop on and check me out there. And we're always looking for great marketing partners to be part of the show. And we got a whole bunch of other stuff going on content-wise in the sim space. And I can't wait to get all of that out there. But I'm just one guy, and I want more guys. So if you want to become a partner so I can bring in more people, that would be awesome. Kind of like building a simulator. It seems like you need a studio to do that kind of stuff. And that's what we're building here in the long run. So join us and check us out there. And we would love to have you as part of our team here. So let's get back to the discussion. We've got Alex Martini and Ivo Franic from Project Motor Racing here. They are the developers and the marketing arm, and we're having a wonderful conversation. And let's talk briefly about the launch. When was the initial launch date?
November. November. I don't know. I've got
25th or something.
I've got trauma. Yeah. It was November something.
November of 2025, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So
yeah.
not long ago, it came out, and I honestly hadn't heard much buzz about it until it launched, and then there was a lot of buzz. And, like anything new, especially in the gaming tech programming world, launches can be a little rocky. And all of the chatter wasn't necessarily positive. I would say not positive, but there were some criticisms. Let's just say that. And I don't know anything that ever launches, whether it be a new car, whether it be a new computer program, whether it be, a building where everything's perfect on the first time out. So, and I try to lead with grace when it comes with stuff like that. I tell people, if you're going to go to a restaurant on opening night, you have to have good expectations. The service may not be perfect. The food may not be perfect because it's opening night and it is crazy to open a restaurant. I always try to wait till a month after opening to go because then they've got a chance to work all the kinks out. But you can't work the kinks out until you go live, until people play a sim and send you feedback, whether it be blowing you up on social media or doing it in a more graceful and private manner. We're now November, 5 months into it. You guys just put out a big update. Tell us about how the last 5 months have gone since launch.
So let's start with the launch. The launch was problematic in that we got things a little bit wrong. And when I say a little bit, I don't mean a little bit. We got things wrong. We were, how best to put it, we were in a development bubble, and we just did not come out of that development bubble. We had issues. I think Eva could probably explain a few of the issues, but we had some issues going in. We were in a decent place, and then we just weren't in a decent place. I think the thing that you just said there, by the way, was extremely canny. The part about the feedback is really important because I don't think that if we had released 3 months later, I think we would have been in the same place more or less.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we were quite listening or quite getting the kind of feedback that we needed to get. And I think launch was the feedback. I say feedback. It was the criticism that was needed for us to get back on path to actually understand where we were and what we needed to do to get back to where we needed to be. So it's a very catty point you made there. Yes.
And beta testing is interesting because most of the times people get paid to beta test. And the feedback you get from someone who you're paying to give you feedback versus the feedback you get from someone who has paid their own money to do it is extraordinarily different. No matter how much you tell your beta testers, please give me your honest support, your honest feedback, they're still getting paid. And I think there's always just that emotional, mental thing where maybe I'm going to hold back just a little bit. But
so we tried to actually, because we've been doing this for a long time, right? So we should have known better. It's funny because we did know better. We created an entire program called the Factory Driver Program, and the point of that was to bring 400 or 500 sim racers into what was essentially a beta program, although it wasn't, because it wasn't payment, so it wasn't early access. It was by invitation only.
Right.
And then we opened it up to people to actually apply for us. The problem there again is we were in a feedback loop,
right.
And what we failed to understand was that the people who were doing the driving, a lot of these guys were like real drivers. They were driving around the problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so we weren't listening because we weren't understanding what they were doing.
Yeah.
We were thinking that what we had was good and they were giving us feedback about certain things. But what we completely missed was fundamentally we'd gone in the wrong direction with, for example, the tire handling. The tire model wasn't where it should have been. And we didn't get there. We didn't pick that up from and bias, yes. A little bit of hubris, perhaps, because we've done this so many times. We thought we knew enough, and
right.
I guess you're always learning something.
Yep.
It's not only us, though, right? I always like to say, just Sunday, if you watch Formula One, Adrian Newey is the most important, greatest,
yep.
Designer in the history of Formula One, designed a car that these drivers couldn't drive for more than 12 laps.
Yeah.
Everybody gets things wrong. We got it wrong, and that's just essentially what happened at launch. We got it wrong. We misread a lot of different things, and since then we're now. We don't. For example, I don't even see this as like 5 months because I have PTSD from launch. I look at it. So we are now on patch number 7. That's kind of how we look at this. Literally, we have put out 7 patches since launch, and a huge update coming at the end of March, which we hope is going to reset the foundation of the sim, basically.
I will say, and we'll get into this more, Alex, I think you probably just said the most important thing that anyone will ever take away from this podcast. And it's the most refreshing thing when someone says, we got it wrong. And
we did.
And most times there's spin and there's trying to tap dance, and when you've got customers and they're upset and you just say we got it wrong, that at least gives, as a customer, I would say, okay, thank you, now let's get it right. And
we are getting it right, and that's the point. And it's more than that, though, right? I wish I could show you the slide that I made. I had a presentation deck at the start of this whole project where the studio got together, and I kind of tried to explain to people, and I know we all get it, everybody in the studio gets it, but sometimes it's good to remind ourselves, we're making more than a simulation, right? We're kind of bringing something that people have a passion about. Yeah. We're bringing that to life. And so I keep saying to people, when you get crucified online, it's not because people are being mean, well, some people are, but it's because you've actually let them down in something that they feel passionate about.
Exactly.
And that's the worst way to let people down. So when you're getting it online, you just have to accept the fact that, listen, we got it wrong. You're going to have to take this and just work harder to get it right now, because you let people down in a fundamental way. It's not a thing that people don't care about. That's where the anger and the bad, it's coming from a place of passion, and they have the same passion as us.
Right.
We felt it more than everybody else. I can promise you, in the studio when we saw those, seriously, I can't tell you how. We also had young guys. There was like, this is their first sim, and the day before they were so excited to see how they were a week old. It was heartbreaking. It was a very heartbreaking 2 weeks, and it took us 2 weeks to get out of there. But you know what? We're in a better place. But even when you go to Steam and you look at our reviews and you look at recent reviews, 77% is now positive.
Yeah.
Right? So the game is good. The game is getting better. We've worked day and night, seriously. When I say we, I don't mean me. I mean Eva and those guys. The developers have been working day and night. But Eva, I'm sure you can just explain exactly what's actually happened since.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of Yeah, first a lot of source searching to work out what we did wrong and how did we miss it, and then fundamentally work out what we need to change, what needs to be improved to get us back on track. One of the most obvious thing, okay, the game had some bugs. We're aware things didn't work like they're supposed to, but fundamentally the most important part of any sim is the driving model. It's how the cars feel, how they drive. Is it realistic and is it fun? Is it convincing? Since launch, there's been a lot of work done in these patches that have been released so far. We're basically going through the vehicle classes, and we found where we went wrong on the tire model side, and we're correcting that now, and we are basically improving them class by class. So the recent patch 1.7 has what we know are the most popular cars by the number of people that drive them. It's the GT3 class, the hypercars, so the LMDH cars, and the GT4s. They already have the new updated tire model, and we've been getting a lot of positive feedback that the cars really now they've turned a corner, as in people can now feel this is what this game should be like.
Sure.
So we're on a good path. We're working hard to fix the rest of the game as well. So all kinds of things, not just the handling. Yeah, basically polishing the game like it deserves to be.
Right.
But yeah, the physics and the handling is fundamentally the most important part of a sim. And yeah, we are trying to make a sim not a compromised mass market arcadey game that tries to simulate cars and make it easy. It has to be a proper sim with no compromises. Yeah, that's what we've been trying to do.
I've always compared sim racing to real world racing, and every car in the real world is evolving, sometimes session to session, let alone weekend to weekend or year to year. And simulators are the same way. So I kind of look at, when you release an update, it's just, you test, you learn, you change it, you make it better. Hopefully you don't make it worse. In the real world, I've made race cars worse. and I have some gray hairs to prove it. But so I assume that it's very much the same thing in the simulator world as well. I did not buy the sim on launch date, so I don't have any reference point to what it was like in November. I loaded the sim this weekend, so I have the latest update on it, and I drove it for the first time. And it's natural for anybody to compare this sim to other things you've done. So, and I have to assume that because people who are smarter, faster, and have driven both real-life GT3 cars and iRacing GT3 cars, that they've got it pretty good. They've got it pretty close. So when I got in and raced your stuff yesterday and the day before, I went right to GT3 because that's what I race the most, and I enjoyed it. It was different, no question, and I've got some questions about that. But I didn't find it to be hugely problematic. I don't know what the problems were at the start. It did feel different, and I'll ask you about that because maybe your model's better than iRacing's model. I don't know. But what has been the feedback now since this latest update that you've been receiving from folks who may have started in November and are now racing it now?
The feedback is positive. Yeah, I mean, we took a very big step forward with the GT3s and GT4s. The first thing we did, actually about a week after launch, is we brought in a lot of sim racers who, as I said, guys like Michi Hoya and Jesper Pedersen and all these kind of guys who have been around for a while. And we brought them in and we set them down and we basically said, listen, what we're going to do now is we're just going to keep evolving until we get to the point where we can bring something out. It took us 3.5 months of solid work on that tire model for the GT3 before we brought it out. Not because it took 3.5 months to get there, but it was iteration, and it was, we can't get this wrong. When we update, it needs to be the right update. And so that's essentially the direction that we went in, which, it's a better slip angle, and it's just a better tire, it's a better feel, it's more authentic, it's more real.
What I wanted to mention was so different titles, different sims, and have different physics models. we're all basically trying to do the same. We're trying to replicate what does a real, for example, a GT3, what does a BMW GT3 car, which you can measure, you can get the information of what the car's fundamental properties are, power, weight, mass, inertia of all the components, the aero maps. We can quantifiably measure these things in the real world. So we're all trying to achieve the same thing. iRacing, Assetto Corsa, LMU, PMR, we're all trying to simulate the same thing in our own virtual world. And so many things go into that physics model. It's literally impossible for all of us to be the same.
Right.
And because it's made by, so there's a mathematical model, like F equals MA, you work out some numbers, some fundamental things are always going to be identical if we have the same data. But then you get to the subjective part, is how should it feel, or how does a developer think, what do they think it should feel like? And you can ask 10 drivers to explain what they feel in that BMW on the limit. How does it feel for them? You'll get 10 different answers. And if we interview one driver and iRacing interviews another, and then we make our cars based off that one person's opinions, you're going to get differently handling or slightly different games. And that's just fundamentally, it's the same problem always with sims. You as the player, your brain has to fill in a lot of gaps. So we, in a sim, most of us don't have any kind of motion rigs or proper motion rigs where you have sustained Gs. Your brain has to fill in a lot of the gaps. So from the visuals, from the audio, and from good force feedback, your brain is filling in the gaps of what you think the car should be doing from either real world experience. And takes a little bit of time for you as the player to adapt to a different game. So it's always very difficult to say which sim is more accurate. Some people prefer, for example, it's like the never-ending discussion, debate, which game has the best force feedback? iRacing has a very specific kind of force feedback, very different than what Assetto Corsa had, Assetto Corsa 1. Assetto Corsa Competizione had a completely different kind of feel, and LMU, again, is different. And we are, of course, somewhere in that range as well, different.
Right.
Now, some people like one, but don't like the other, whereas some other people are completely different.
Right.
It's opposite, with the same hardware, but then you've got different hardware, different peripherals. It's actually impossible to make the perfect sim because there are too many variables and too many subjective opinions. And that's the tricky thing. It's how to make something. It's always the developers and the team behind, for example, the handling team, their interpretation of what this should be like. So you can measure the real car, you make sure that your model accurately reflects that. For example, same top speeds, same maximum Gs in the corners, but it's fundamentally, it's this gray area. It's all in the tire, honestly. The tire is the black box of all sims. Even real world, like Michelin, they don't have a perfect model for their own product. They don't know exactly what the tire is doing.
Yeah.
They can measure it on a what's it called, on the rolling road, or like a tire rig. They can measure what a real tire will do at a certain slip angle, at a certain load, and you get graphs, and you get that's one thing. But then trying to model that dynamically in a sim that needs to run at 100 frames per second, and you get into these areas where it's really difficult to get perfect correlation with real life. So fundamentally, different sims will always slightly feel different, but our hope is that we all try to achieve the same result, that you as the player are convinced that you are immersed in this virtual world, and while you're driving that car around that track, you forget that you're playing a game and that you're at a PC. You really feel like you're trying to exploit the maximum of what that car can do, and you're playing with the setup, and if it's a race, how the stint evolves. If you can get lost in that, then we've done our job. So there is a certain level of accuracy that's needed. You cannot have the cars be 20 seconds a lap faster. That's fundamentally wrong. But you can never have it exactly the same as the other team, and that's what we're always battling.
What you said here is really key, because my brain, because I've never played another sim, I messed around a little bit with Assetto Corsa, but 99.9% of what I've done has been iRacing. My brain was wondering why it wasn't the same. But what you just said is just so critical. It's not supposed to be the same. It's a different developer's interpretation of what right is. And as soon as I started thinking about that while you were talking, I'm like, it all made a lot of sense to me. I was looking for it to be the same, but maybe iRacing's not right, you know? And
I don't think it's not really a matter of right. You know what it is? Maybe an example is really, when they changed the tires rules in Formula One, you suddenly found guys like Sebastian Vettel, who was a 5-time world champion. Suddenly he was not competitive anymore.
Right.
And the reason for that is just he couldn't get on with those tires.
Yeah.
And you'll find that if you ever get to actually start moving and get seriously into a sim and give it like a month or whatever, you'll find that you're actually faster in certain sims than you are in other sims. I guarantee
Absolutely.
I'm actually slower in iRacing than I am in LMU. I just don't know why. I suck at iRacing. Well, I don't suck at iRacing, but I'm not as fast in iRacing as I am in LMU. Those tires my brain is feeling better, and I'm just getting a better feel for what's happening in the car than I have. It's just the way of the nature. So it's not either that one is wrong or one is right or one is closer. Where we are now, all these 5 studios, as I was saying, that are making this, we're all pretty close.
Yeah.
Which is why real world races are all using simulation now, because we're not. It's never going to be perfect, but we are pretty close these days.
Yeah. So let me share with the folks at home my first experience for someone who may have never done this before on Project Motor Racing. When I first got in and got everything set up, my first couple of laps, my first thought was, wow, this is so easy. And it seemed like it was unrealistically easy, because these cars shouldn't be easy to drive. These are beasts in real life. So I assume that they should be beasts on the simulator.
Can I just interrupt there for a second?
Yes.
That's a point that we often heard, like, through development over the years. Unfortunately, I think Grand Prix Legends, so GPL, the original, well, not the original, but the bigger success in terms of the physics and advancement in the game genre was GPL for all these sims.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fundamentally very, very difficult game to drive. And I'm sure Dave will admit, as he has before, that there were errors, or the model wasn't perfect. The cars are not really they shouldn't have been that difficult to drive. There were some diff problems and things. Having a game be difficult doesn't mean it's accurate.
Well, that's right.
A GT3 car is a very specific thing. It's actually very easy to explain this. GT3 cars, the real race cars, they are made for, let's say, gentleman drivers. They are not F1 cars. They are not LMDHs, which are really not on the knife edge. Real drivers do not enjoy racing LMDH cars because they are so edgy, and the tire that Michelin had at the time was very critical. A GT3 car, as you said you have real track experience. Driving a well set up race car at 90% of its limit is actually easy. If you're 3 or 4 seconds off the limit of a car around the track, you should not be scared that the car is going to spin out on you. It's that last 1%, those last tenths. That's where the real drivers. That's where you find who's the best. But fundamentally, especially a really good, well set up GT3 style of car, big slicks, lots of downforce, lots of power, but not crazy, like 500, 550 horsepower. Those cars are not really difficult to drive for anyone who has like a driver's license until you start really pushing. Right. And a lot of people, so I've been through these sims basically since the 90s. I was also always in the camp, this sim is, let's say, accurate, or we think it's accurate. A new sim comes out and it's easier. The first criticism is, it's easy, therefore it must be wrong. Right. It must be dumbed down.
100%.
And this is the preconception people have of what accuracy is and how it relates to difficulty. And it's hard to... People understand that. It's not that everybody thinks difficulty means accuracy, but it's a crucial part that we can't forget.
So one of the things I noticed is when the default settings, when I popped in, you have an authentic setting, and then you have, I don't know what the default is.
Like forced on or forced off.
Right, exactly. So I had it on all the default settings, and it was like so easy to drive. And then I'm like, this can't, what am I doing wrong? Or what, is there? So then I went, I see authentic. So then I changed everything to authentic. And then all of a sudden, okay, now this feels more like what it should feel like. So that would be maybe a suggestion I would have, is to let people know that there's these two modes. And because I had to kind of go do a little digging
Yes.
to find it.
But remember, for our sim, every single car has the default A's they would have had in real life, right? So GT3, for instance, you're going to have traction control and ABS. If you go to the 1970 cars, you get nothing.
Right.
But you can turn it on the back end to actually simulate whatever it is.
Right.
But it's basic. It's not there yet.
Yeah. We have to be approachable by average players,
right,
who are not experienced simmers. So ABS and traction control is a very good example here. Modern GT3s have it. For example, the Porsche GT3 Cup cars until now, the 26th season, didn't have ABS or traction.
Correct.
Because it was a formula made to find new talent. It wasn't a Porsche Cup car is not a gentleman's class. It's a really competitive young person class to try to get into higher classes.
Mm-hmm.
And those cars are very difficult to drive compared to a GT3 Porsche because it doesn't have those aids. Now, we have to cater for average users and also console players who can play on the gamepad. If everything is set to authentically on, as in authentic mode, some cars are just going to be very, very tricky to drive. So we have to, our decision was we will default to forced on so that you have ABS in traction.
Yeah.
If you understand what that is and you want to be authentic and drive the car exactly how it should be, you can turn those things off. But the defaults have to be for the mass market, for the people that are not going to go through the menus and check. So it's always a balance.
And I have to remind myself as I'm driving it for the first time that I've been tweaking settings on iRacing for 3 years to get it to where I think it should be. And I was in Project Motor Racing for an hour and a half. So there's no way I shouldn't be saying this is the way it should be because I haven't had a chance to play with all the different settings and see what it is. So I think people need to temper their first impressions if you've got a whole bunch of time in another simulator because you don't have that time in this simulator, and there's stuff you can play with. There's things you could tweak that are that will change the experience over time. And some of us love the rabbit hole of getting our simulator to work, and it was great to do it. And we just assume that we jump into another one, it's all going to be the same. And like, no, why should we assume that? So I think that's something that if you have the proper expectations going in. The one thing is very different, and as you said, maybe it should be, is your force feedback's different than what I'm used to. And I have a Moza wheelbase, and I know all the wheelbase manufacturers are somewhat the same, where you have your software that partners with your wheelbase, and a lot of the manufacturers have created presets for different platforms. When I went to my Moza wheelbase, there is no preset for Project Motor Racing. So I didn't get a chance to play with some of the other presets to see if it would feel better on Project Motor Racing, which I would do with more time. Are you working with the other manufacturers to kind of get that stuff going and get that rolled out?
So, two things. The first thing is, yes, absolutely. We work with manufacturers all the time, and we are getting it better. The second thing, actually, there's three things. The second thing is part of our launch where I think we got a little bit lost down the rabbit hole was what we did with the force feedback, because you can actually tinker with your force feedback in your setup menu, in your actual car setup menu, which a lot of people never found. That's actually where you refine. So it's not under the global settings. We actually do it in your actual setup. It's part of the setup.
Got it.
And the third thing, which I think Eva could probably explain better than me, is that a lot of simulations, and I think iRacing is probably one of them, you're getting your forces from the contact patch of your tires. We don't. We're getting all our forces from the steering rack. So what you're experiencing is a completely different...
Right.
You're literally experiencing what you would in a real car, which is actually from the rack. You're not getting... You don't feel... I mean, you feel the contact patch of your tire in a car, but not in your steering wheel. You're feeling that in the G-forces of your car. So that's why for us to translate that becomes... a lot more challenging, which is why we had so many different levels of force feedback, because we wanted to try and let people actually get that sense, but actually tune it to their own level. And it's interesting because Eva has actually been going through class by class and car by car, tuning the force feedback for these patches that have come out, which have really improved everything. So Eva,
I could just add a little bit to that. So I'm not 100% sure how iRacing does it, but it's quite common like Assetto Corsa is well known for this. The forces, so in the physics model, the forces go through the tires. So at all times, the game engine knows what the forces are on the tires and individually on the patches. Now, how you make force feedback feel force feedback through your physical steering wheel, it depends on how the game decides to interpret those forces. At the patch, so taking the forces, so it's the three directions in the three moments around those, so there's three axes and three moments around each axis. How you transfer that into the force feedback is either basically through the patch or through the rack. We believe and we think it's better, more accurate to do it through the rack, but it's a very complicated thing because, for example, so the rack is not a perfectly stiff mechanism. There is some flex in steering arms and things, and the bushes and stuff.
Joints and the actual steering
column
itself, everything.
Yeah, and of course, each vehicle's geometry. What is the kingpin inclination? What are the casters? That affects what you feel. So as you change the caster in a real car, you will change the feedback. It's physically changing angles. The tire will behave differently, and the forces that you feel through the rack change because it's now a different lever times something. So now, this is always a bit tricky for us as well. How much, like how deep down the rabbit hole do we go? Do we allow users to adjust anything, or do we give them what we think is the best and let them just have a slider for strength 1 to 10 or whatever?
Right.
It's always difficult to cater to both sides of the spectrum. Some people like to tinker, and what you can do with our game in our setups is you can, at default, it's rack 1.0. So it's like 100% of the rack feel is what you are feeling. You can slide that down and increase the patch force. So you can get a blend between the two. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to explain this to casual users or even seasoned players. And we've personally struggled with that, how to communicate what exactly is possible with our engine. People that like to tinker, and we've seen this online with various streams, YouTubers.
Sure.
The guys that had more, let's say, patience or more devoted more time to playing with settings, tended to find things that they preferred.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before, my preferred force feedback might not be your preferred force feedback. So I will think, no, this is too dampened. I'm not feeling enough. You might say, oh, it's under dampened and I'm feeling too much. It's down to hardware, it's down to expectations, and it's down to what you prefer. The good part of our model is that we let the player play with this stuff.
Sure.
The tricky part is this is quite a complex area, and you can easily go too far and you can mess it up. You can make it worse. So our job is to make really good defaults that are, in our opinion, a good middle ground, and then let players play in either side.
Right.
And we're still working on that to make sure we get that balance right.
Well, and my advice to players, real quick, Alex, my advice to players on that is, from my real world experience, when you're testing, make one change at a time and then go change it. Because there's no real world consequences of crashing a car in a sim, people like to switch everything around, and then you have no idea which change you made is the positive or negative change. So it takes a lot of time, just like in the real world, but here it doesn't cost us for track time. We don't have to worry about bidding a car. So if you're making more than one change at a time, you will never understand what that particular change made. So continue.
And
Sorry.
I think also where we went wrong was, and we're addressing this in the update that's coming at the end of March, we didn't have enough information for the users. We had a lot of information out on release, so you could read all about every single force feedback setting, but that's just assuming that people are going to download and read it, which is a big assumption these days. So we're actually getting tooltips into the game for this update that we do at the end of March. So you literally can go to your force feedback and you can see exactly what every single thing actually does, because that's really going to be because some of us don't even know. Like we have settings like max headroom, and I was like, do you remember max headroom? It used to be a song in the 80s.
Exactly.
Right? What the hell is max headroom?
I remember it.
I don't even know what max headroom was, and that's the point. So that's what I was saying to you about launches. We looked at, we went down rabbit holes and we thought to ourselves, well, boy, okay, so we have a problem. So what should we do? And the solution would have been, well, why do we have this problem? Let's figure out why we had the problem. But what we did sometimes was, and this was one of those things, is okay, well, we have a problem, so let's figure out ways that we can go even further deeper down this rabbit hole to try and find a solution. And at the end of the day, we landed up with all these settings which people can, but most people don't want to like sit there for 25 hours trying to figure out how to get a game going, right? Nobody wants to do that.
So I'm coming to the point where we have to kind of wrap the show up here. We've covered so much space. There's a couple of little things I want to just touch on it with my experience. I love all of what I call the pretty stuff. Your splash screen, the video ahead of time, the fact that you do a little like pre-grid, like almost like the announcers would be going through the starting lineup on a race. I think all of that is abundantly cool, and it's also, you can skip it too, which is also nice for those who just want to get right to the action. I thought that was fantastic. The art is really well done. I think you guys have done a really nice job with that. I need to play a little bit more with some of the graphic in-game settings. And I think that's on my end as well, just because I haven't had a chance to work with it. But everything looked great. I thought the tracks looked good. I didn't have really any negatives to say in all of that. In my first, literally my first glance experience at it, I'm just giving my first glance thoughts. And the audio is different than what I'm used to. Again, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I liked it. I thought it was the sounds like leaving pit lane, I thought were really accurate, because I've actually sat on pit lane a lot with these cars, and so I know that. But I really liked the audio model, and the in-car audio model I thought was pretty good as well. So I think that there's the foundation, the bones here are really positive, and that was my first impression. So I
appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that, again, I don't have the benefit of going back to day one. Maybe that's a good thing. But my 4-month in impression on this latest update is something that I think it's worth playing with, especially if you have the time and you want to see what else is out there. I haven't done any multiplayer live stuff yet. I just because I just started. That's something I'd like to play with a little bit more, and I will. But I think that it's exciting to have a new platform out there.
Can I say one thing about our multiplayer, since I'm the marketing guy?
Sure.
I will never forgive myself if I don't. We have ranked online, just for example, like iRacing, right?
Yeah.
We actually have native ranked online, just like iRacing. So we're one of the only simulators that has that, except we're free. So nice. You can literally, from April the 1st, for example, you can race every single class. We have 4 races a month, which makes up your championship. And so, like, I know iRacing has seasons. I think the seasons run for 9 weeks, 11 weeks, I think it is.
13 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. So our season runs for 4 weeks. So we do first of the month until the end of the month, and you have a championship in every class. And we have divisions, license points, the whole thing. And that's free. So there you go.
I love it. So,
and actually, it's fun, because and obviously we also have custom lobbies and all that kind of stuff as well. So people just want to come on and just have some fun. Online's a big thing for us, so yeah. And the rate online is getting better, I think.
Yeah.
As we go along, yeah.
Evo, before we let you go, it sounds like Alex just gave me his parting shot here. I love that. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with me before I wrap this thing up?
Well, just say that, yeah, we're working hard on making sure that our physics are at a level that we are happy with, and with the current patch that's out, we can already see that, and we can see from reception that people are appreciating, and they can see the improvement that's been made. That's great to see. We have even more fixes or even more improvements in the pipeline right now, so we're very eager for this 2.0 patch to come out. People will see even further improvements, and yeah, it's a never-ending story. There is no final version of the game, just like iRacing, that the game is now finished and we're all happy. It's constant iterations and constant evolving, improving. There are crucial features that we are still missing that we need to have, and we will have things like triple screen and VR support. There's still a lot of work for us to do, but we're on a good path now. So yeah, very happy and eager to see how people how they respond to the latest version that's coming out at the end of the month.
And I would just say to people, and this is what I learned in this show that I never even thought about, is different isn't wrong. And if we're expecting it to be just like another simulator, then why would we even buy a different simulator? That's just would be stupid. I mean, why would you waste your time and your money? Yep. So if you're expecting it to be the same, you probably have the wrong expectation. Now that doesn't mean that different can't be wrong, but it doesn't mean that it is wrong. So
GT3s were wrong.
Yeah.
On launch, and there's no, we're not wrong now.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you the people who have helped us develop this, because a lot of these guys are under NDA and we're not allowed to say. But let's just say that we've brought in, we have invested a lot of time and a lot of money to actually get the tire models right.
Yeah.
Working with our handling team who are really good as well, because we've done some good games, right? If you go back to the days of GTR and GTR2 and Project Cars, we've done some great sims, and it's this team is still together, and we're getting there. We will get there.
I love it.
It's a slow process, but we're getting there.
Alex, Evo, thank you for your time today, and let's get together and do some more stuff. I think there would be good conversations.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Sim Paddock. I'm Brian Belansky. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you learned something, because I know I certainly have. And if you like this, please like and subscribe and support the channel in any way you can. Share it on your socials and on your Discord channels if you've got one of those. Let people know that we're out there, because the more people that watch, the more we can do fun stuff with this. This is Inside the Sim Paddock on the Racing Network. Have yourself a great day. Have yourself a great week. And go drive your sim.